the therapy.
Yes, indeed.
So this is the first poem that I've written in about 3 years, and my mother had some of the biggest, roundest, most beautiful eyes you ever saw on a human being, ever. If you ever saw the biggest, brightest, full moonlight, those are my mother's eyes. And that is the very last thing that I remember seeing of her before her soul went back to the ether. So this poem is called Eyes Like. Her eyes, big like love, pure like the heart of a child, enormous, filled with life wide, open like a sunflower at the first sign of spring, glossed over with sadness like morning dew on soft petals when touched like rain, trickled down, streaked cheeks like tears, fattened by sadness, hidden like water in an abandoned well, once thought dry but alive. Her eyes glazed over with sorrow, concealed like something invisible. Is it there? If only I could see. Her eyes remind me of the wind. I can feel them like warm ocean air and cool summer breezes on my skin. Her eyes heavy with worry, sweeping still, mesmerizing like a daydream. Lost inside a cloud, searching for a truth only her eyes can recognize. Flawed but beautiful, weak yet strong, praying and faithful, still full of doubt. Bruised by a broken marriage, a grown baby, the ruins of finance and unfulfilled promises, made strong by circumstance, still afraid. Her eyes, a closet for fears, pupils like clothing, filling the empty spaces in her eyes like a passage, a path to the orbit of her mind, a secret gateway to certainty, still unclear like muddy waters, sinking into this brown abyss like quicksand, warm, squeezing tight, pulling, clinging like a silk blouse. How could this purgatory be so comforting? Her eyes garmented with triumph, even when defeated. Life, the bottomless pit in existence, left mistreated, but her eyes continue looking, searching for light, like Mother Earth reaching for the sun in the morning. 7 a.m. day breaks in her eyes, stretching into the new day. Time goes on in her eyes like the moon, lavish in the sky, luminous in her eyes, yet cracked on its surface, still so bright and amazing. Her eyes speak volumes like stadium crowds roaring and echoes ringing, memories locked away, uncaged miseries grasping at what joy and the ugly beauty mirrored back at her in her eyes. Her eyes like instruments, ancient and foreign yet familiar, like the soul of an African drum, deep, fervent, throbs like heartbeats in her eyes. I see music, Memphis blues, smoky and passionate, subtle, simplistic, sincere but apologetic without words, forgiving without forgetting, reminding you of the hurt in her eyes. Few chose to recognize, even love ignored the striking artistry in those eyes, like lightning so fierce it rattles the thunder, setting wildfires, killing wildflowers, then rebuilding the once destroyed with her eyes. Her eyes uplift, get you high, lick, split, feel spliffs, burned at the tip. Her eyes etched into my memory, watching me, watching she, watching he. We live in her eyes, housed by pride, a work of art. Those eyes, a lost masterpiece no one saw the value in until restored to glory. Still a never-ending story in those eyes. Those eyes like storm clouds and rain, oceans, plateaus and plains, laughter and pain. Those eyes like mustard seeds, gigantic with hope, always looking forward, only glancing at footsteps left in the sand. On time, still off track. Those eyes become my sight, a beacon in the night. Those eyes like waterfalls, cascading dreams, colossal with praise, so deserving of it, yet starving, malnutrition from lack of credit due, and it's in her eyes, the reflection of the prize, unproved, still her eyes, sanctioned to tell the tale, bitterness, loneliness, destitution, a living hell. Her eyes faithfully clutch onto life, no longer hers. A body left vacant with eyes like a newborn, filled with wonder. Now, unfenced, unsheltered, unleashed, still she is not undone. Her eyes laboring to see her legacy bloom like the lotus blossom in her eyes. In her eyes there is peace, still confusion, but peace. In her eyes, nirvana is reached, heaven unlatched, the solar system unfastened. In her eyes, the doorway to the Milky Way opened, and she becomes my galactic center. There are galaxies in her eyes, light years a short distance in her eyes, seas parted, skies once black and bleak give spectrum to beams of light, ultraviolet. The future is in her eyes, the future is in her eyes, the future is in her eyes like river water, unpolluted, it is clear. It's in her eyes glistening with the pride of pleasure, fighting fire with brimstone. In her eyes, I saw forever. Thank you.